Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a pretty startling vision of our future. We're breaking down Elon Musk's recent deep dive interview with The Economist. And guys, we're looking at a world where artificial intelligence doesn't just change human labor, it completely ends it. I mean, think about it. What actually happens when the world's most famous capitalist says money is dead? The irony here is incredibly thick. We have literally one of the wealthiest men on the planet, a billionaire who built immense fortunes, predicting an impending future where currency and even human work as we know it become completely obsolete. Section 1. Musk's 5-year AI prophecy. To understand how we even get to that moneyless society, you have to look at the sheer speed of these milestones. We are absolutely not talking about science fiction set centuries from now. According to Musk, by 2025, AI is already reaching a point where it's smarter than the smartest individual human. But it doesn't stop there. Within just 5 years, so roughly 2029, AI is projected to exceed all human intelligence combined. And the most startling projection, within about a decade, roughly by 2036, humanity could potentially lose control of this technology entirely. Let that sink in for a second. The exact quote from Musk is, "I think AI may exceed the sum of human intelligence in about 5 years." We aren't just talking about a machine beating a single chess grandmaster or a lone genius anymore. No, we're talking about an intelligence that surpasses the entire collective brainpower of all the scientists, researchers, and innovators worldwide. Combined, the sum of all human intellectual output, completely outmatched by machines. To really put this into perspective, Musk uses a pretty stark Darwinian analogy. He compares this impending intelligence gap between AI and humans to the current gap between humans and chimpanzees. Humanity took thousands, maybe millions of years of evolution to move from living in caves to where we are today. But AI, it's making a similar evolutionary leap in just a matter of years. It's a terrifyingly fast evolution. Though, as Musk jokingly noted, chimpanzees didn't invent humans, whereas we are actively inventing our AI successors. Section 2. The Era of Abundance. So if we're outsmarted and outworked by machines, what actually happens to us? Well, Musk's economic vision maps out in 4 distinct steps. Step 1. AI and AI-driven robots replace human labor entirely. Now, it's acknowledged this will be a pretty painful transitional phase with job losses, but it supposedly leads to step 2. Because machines are doing all the heavy lifting, we see an unprecedented production of goods and services. They'll produce far more than humanity actually needs. Step 3. Thanks to this massive oversupply, inflation just drops to 0. And finally, step 4. Governments will simply distribute financial checks to everyone so they can live comfortably without having to work. Basically, a world where robots work for free just to keep us alive. But, as the analysis rightly points out, there is a massive catch here. This entire utopian vision, this grand era of abundance, relies entirely on humanity's ability to avoid major global conflicts. If we stumble into massive wars or destructive behaviors, this delicate transition to an AI-provided utopia completely shatters. It definitely brings a necessary dose of realism to a very grand promise. Section 3. A capitalist's communist vision. Okay, we really have to address the startling paradox here. On one hand, you have Elon Musk, arguably the ultimate capitalist of our time. On the other, the historical architects of left-wing, moneyless societies like Lenin and the Bolsheviks. The source material highlights just how incredibly ironic it is that a billionaire capitalist is essentially echoing the ultimate goals of early communist economic theories, a society where you don't need money, and the state, or in this case, the machines, provides for absolutely all your needs. To understand why analysts are a bit skeptical of this, we just have to look at history. Pretty much every time a moneyless society was attempted, it faced catastrophic failure. During the 1918 Bolshevik Revolution, there was an attempt to let the ruble collapse. They nationalized agriculture and tried distributing goods directly to farmers, and it failed miserably. Over in Cambodia in the 1970s, the Khmer Rouge took it to a violent extreme, literally blowing up the central bank to abolish currency. That, too, ended in total disaster. So why do these historical experiments keep collapsing? Well, the analysis argues that the desire for ownership, the utility of money, and yes, even human greed are fundamental innate traits. They act as the necessary fuel for human work, progress, and possession. The assumption that people will just happily exist without the incentive of ownership kind of ignores a massive part of human nature. Section 4. The Luddite Warning. Which brings us to a very immediate practical danger. Right between the loss of our jobs and the promise of those utopian payouts, there is an incredibly risky transition period. I really want you to think about this for a second. What happens to the hundreds of millions of people who will inevitably lose their jobs before governments even figure out how to tax the robots and distribute these supposed checks? Where does the money come from in the meantime? That gap between sudden mass unemployment and future utopian solutions is a highly, highly volatile space. And history actually gives us a warning here, too. 200 years ago, during the British Industrial Revolution, workers didn't just sit back when machines took their livelihoods. The Luddites violently protested. They literally physically smashed the industrial machines and factories. The source analysis poses a really stark question. If millions find themselves suddenly jobless today, will they take to the streets? Will they turn their anger toward the modern symbols of their displacement? Like, are people going to march on the AI data centers? We also have to remember, we've been promised this kind of abundance before. A century ago, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes predicted that machines would make us so incredibly productive, we'd only need to work a 15-hour week. Yet here we are today. We have more technology than ever, but people are working harder than ever, often tied to their work emails late into the midnight hours right from their own living rooms. That utopia of leisure just never quite arrived. Section 5. Tech revolutions and political shifts. Think about it like this. When gunpowder was invented, it literally blew up the feudal system, ending the era of knights and lords. The printing press completely shattered the church's monopoly on information. The telegraph allowed empires, like the British Empire, to manage global territories. And in our modern era, the internet and social media directly fueled massive political disruptions like Brexit and major shifts in global leadership. Every massive leap in technology fundamentally disrupts the existing political order. AI is absolutely going to be no different. Section 6. Utopia or dystopia? As we stand on the edge of this AI revolution, we have to ask, who actually benefits from this technological leap? To illustrate the reality of wealth distribution, the analysis provides some fascinating math. It points out that Elon Musk recently saw a fluctuation where he lost roughly $700 billion in value over a really short period. Now, if you took just that lost $700 billion and divided it equally among the 800 million people currently living under the global poverty line, they would only get about $900 each. The core problem here is just mathematical reality. As the source material argues, we technically already live in an era of abundance. There is massive wealth in the world today. But math shows us that true, distributed abundance is incredibly difficult to achieve, because that wealth remains heavily concentrated in the hands of a very select few. So will AI change that concentration or just accelerate it? Which leaves us with this final, powerful question. The philosopher Al-Farabi wrote of the virtuous city, a true utopia working for the good of all humanity. Are we heading toward that perfect, jobless society Musk envisions? Or are we speeding toward a dystopia where the most important question isn't how much abundance there is, but rather who controls the abundance? It's a huge question we all need to be thinking about as we watch this future unfold. Thanks for joining me on This Explainer, and keep questioning the future.